Hey folks, Jack Spirko here with another survival podcast video. Today we're here to talk about amaranth, and I've got some heads of some Hopi red dye amaranth, and we're going to talk about how to turn this into actual grain or seed. The quantity we're going to do today is really more about saving seed for replanting next year than it is for using the grain itself. But this method works with whether you're doing a little bit or a lot. I planted Golden Giant. There's a video I did for one of my other websites. Maybe I'll put a link to it from this video. You can look at it with Golden Giant Amaranth. It's 8 foot tall and just huge. And I got, I think out of 12 plants, I got 8 pounds of grain. I'm not going to get anywhere near that out of this. And what I'm going to do today, when I show you how to get this out of here, you don't even really have to, this has been cut and dried over a few days, and that helps, but you don't really even have to do that. A lot of times I just take a bag or something I can catch the stuff in, maybe a small bucket, and I go right up to the heads on the plants and I just kind of do what I'll show you how the motion kind of getting it out right into the bucket, and then I take it with a plate and I do a little thing where you blow on it to separate the chaff from the grain itself. Really pretty easy to do. This is not like wheat where it's really heavy and the chaff is really light. That's why we can't winnow it. You know, just kind of basically pour it in a breeze and let the wind take it away. And even this way, you're going to lose some. Commercial producers have equipment to do this for them. But I think what you'll find out, if you don't fret over losing a little bit of it, this is really pretty easy and it results in a pretty clean product. The other thing about amaranth is it's 100% edible. So if you get a little bit of the chaff or something like that, and you don't get 100% of it out, it's not that big a deal, so we don't need to over-fret with it that way. So now you know a little bit about amaranth. Let me give you a little bit more before we go into how to do this. This is a wonder plant. When these plants are a little bitty, you can cut them and use them like a vegetable. Even when they're big, you can pull the nugro out of them and eat them like a vegetable. The grain, which is actually a seed that I'm going to show you how to get out of here, is very, very nutritious, very high in protein, very high in vitamins and minerals. It is a wonder plant, really, with all that can be done with it. You can grind these seeds if you get enough of them to make a gluten-free flour. They were used by Native Americans and Native peoples all around the world for thousands of years, honestly. In the point in time where Europeans first started settling the New World, what some of the natives would do is actually make animal effigies of this, binding them together using this grain with honey and blood. And it looked too much like communion. So this is actually a banned plant. Spanish explorers and to a lesser degree English explorers banned this plant, and it was not allowed to be grown in the New World. It's a shame because of how nutritious and how valuable this plant actually is. But with that, let's go ahead and let me reposition the camera and I'll show you how to get this stuff out. Okay, this is really pretty simple. What we'll do is we'll just get a piece of our amaranth here and we just start basically rubbing it with our fingers. And you can see the grain just falls away onto the plate. And that's really it. That's all it takes, is just kind of a massaging. Now, this is actually why I don't like to dry it out. You'll notice I get some pretty big pieces of chaff and a little bit more trouble separating the grain. If you leave it on the plant when you do this, and again, I did this because I was leaving, and if you leave amaranth on the plant for too long, what you'll find out is sometimes a lot of your grain and your seed will fall out on its own, and that's fine for reseeding, but you don't get any of it. So since I was going to be gone, I went ahead and dried this out to make sure I could do this for you. So once it's dried, what you really want to do is fully crush it. And that'll make separating the chaff easier. And this is it. This is the whole process. I'll do a little bit more, and then I'll pause the camera and do the rest off camera, and then I'll come back, off camera and show you exactly how you get all of this furry, willowy stuff out of your amaranth, and then what you do with it from there on out. Okay, I'm back, and I'll see how well this goes without having a cameraman with me. I'll try my best to keep this in the frame at all times for you. But you can see I've crushed not all of that amaranth, but just a little bit, probably about half of one head. And because it was dried out, the best thing to do is to fully, just absolutely crush the heck out of it. And if you look, you can see that there's a lot of fluff. And you also probably can see, and I decided to use the red dye amaranth for this because the seed's black. It'll be easier to see the seeds. But how do I get all of this mess out of here? Well, what I do is, since the seeds are heavier, it's kind of like a little gold panning action, sort of. And bringing it, so I know most of my seeds is going to go to the bottom now and fall to this side. And then I'll just start blowing really quite gently. Trying to steep down instead of lifting it up and keep this in for you. But one of the things you can do that really helps, and the wind's going to come here and help me a little bit, if I let go of my paper plate too much, it'll take too much off, is start with everything down low and then blow it up and shake it a little bit, and I can start to see the grain forming now. Big pieces you just lift out by hand, unless you want to crush them more. And I know this looks tedious, but it's actually a lot easier with large amounts. Because the more you have, the less you worry about losing. And you can just start to really blow a little bit more aggressively. We'll take some of the stems out, some of the bigger pieces out by hand. You see that we're down to mostly, I don't want to tilt it too far, but we're down to mostly grain at this point. And just do a little bit more blowing. And again, the important thing to remember is, unlike wheat where the chaff could really get in your throat and cause you problems, this stuff here, if you get a little bit of fluff with it, as you get down to the end, just kind of blow on it as light as you can, and a lot of that fluff will move up to the top of the plate. Then you can give that good hard blows. And that's pretty clean grain right there. There's one stick. That little bit of chaff that's still there, I won't even worry about. And then the reason I like a paper plate versus a regular plate is now we've got it like this, I can fold it. And I've got a little Ziploc bag here. Give me a second, I'll be right back with you. We'll take our amaranth grain, dump it into our bag, and there we go. Now again, that's not going to be a lot to make flour out of or anything like that. It's a very small amount, and the red dye amaranth is not something that I generally use for flour because it's smaller and it doesn't produce as much. But the basic procedure is the same, and again, the more you have, the easier it is, because you can just really blow and don't worry about how much of it gets away from you. And let me get back here in front of you where I can actually see you now. You know, I guess the big thing is, it's just basically, it's not hard. It's really easy to do. Again, this isn't a whole lot, but this is actually a tremendous amount of seed. There's probably close to 1,000 seeds right here. So this will do a lot of growing for next season. Again, I grow the red dye mostly to use it as a vegetable. It looks really pretty in salads and things like that. Very, very nutritious as a vegetable. Larger varieties, again, once you get the seed into the plate, you can get a big plate of it, just blow real hard. And sure, you lose half the seed, but there's so much seed from one big amaranth plant, it's really not that big that you might lose some of it. And you lose less than I believe you think you do. The other thing, like I said, what you can do is, as the plants are starting to mature, if you're watching them, is go out each day as they're starting to drop seed, leave the heads attached on the plant. This isn't very practical if you're growing an acre of amaranth, but if you're growing, 30, 40, 50 plants, something like that, just go by and just kind of run your fingers along the heads, not real hard, not grinding it, and just let the easy seed drop out. You get a lot less chaff that way. Take that plate or that dish or that box inside. Let it sit for about, a day so that the chaff dries out, because it's a little bit moist, so it weighs more when it's moist, and then just do it the way I showed you, and that way you get less chaff, less work, and you get more grain overall, because you don't have to pick a point to stop the plants from producing. You're kind of getting grain as you go along. Eventually one day you'll go out to your plants and you'll kind of rub on them and no more grain will come out. They're pretty much spent at that point. You can cut them down and compost them. So there you go. That's how you harvest amaranth grain.